European School of Oncology, E-session will start soon, please hold on. Good morning, afternoon and evening. This is the conference operator. The European School of Oncology welcomes you to the E-session 526002. Today's session is Forecasting of COVID-19 Diffusion in Italy. As a reminder, during the live session, all participants can ask questions live at any time by simply pressing on the relevant button at the top of the page. Questions will be received by Dr. Luca Bertolacini, of the European Institute of Oncology, Milan, Italy, who will discuss them with Dr. Lelio Fenga, of the ISTAT, Italian National Institute of Statistics, Rome, Italy. Here is an extract of the policy which is published on our website in full. I will now hand over to Dr. Bertolaccini. Doctor, your line is now open.
Welcome to everybody. 2 months and a half after the first registered patient for COVID-19 in mid-February 2020 in Codogno, a little place in the northern of Italy, over 200,000 positive cases have been identified, with a death toll of more than 31,000 people, and COVID-19 has rapidly spread in more than 200 countries around the world, and many countries are facing the challenges in controlling its blowout. Today we have the pleasure to have one of the experts of forecasting of COVID-19 diffusion in Italy, and we have the Dr. Livio Fenga, an expert of statistical modeling. Livio Fenga is a researcher at Italian National Institute of Statistics at Rome, the ISTAT. So, please, Dr. Fenga, please, Livio, and many thanks.
Thank you, Luca, and thank you everybody for being here. Before starting, let me stress that you are more than welcome to raise questions, to share doubts, and I will be more than happy to answer them and do my best to maximize the efficiency of our meeting. Well, let's start with our webinar. We are going to talk about the forecasting methods in epidemiology, and in particular focusing on the COVID-19 in Italy. This is the outline of my talk. We are going to go through the introduction materials. So at first we are going to analyze the forecasting basic rule. This is just one basic rule. Then we are going to delve into the matter by talking about the model and the problem. So what are the models used mainly to address the forecasting problem in epidemiology, and how to frame in a correct way the problem. Then we are going to speak about the intuition behind the mathematical models. So it's very important for me to give the basic tools in terms of intuition, how to figure out what's behind a mathematical model. Then in the section 2, I'm going to introduce some tools. So the idea is to make you able somehow, to certain degrees of abilities, able to build your own models using a very common software language. It's called R, which is freely available at no cost for everybody. Then a forecasting exercise will conclude my presentation. So, what is the most important view? Many of you are doctors. So, as doctors, even researchers in math and stats need to observe. We need to observe our data. So there are no mathematical models without a proper observation coming from a visual, for instance, a visual inspection of the data, looking at the numbers, and from a qualitative point of view and quantitative point of view. Okay, so there are no forecast methods that can be done by skipping this step. That is a recipe for disaster. I know personally, and I've done personally disasters when I tried to skip this important step, just because my feeling was no, the math is important, and yeah, this is an ancillary role. No, looking at your data has nothing to do with an ancillary role. It is the most important role, actually. The same also for qualitative forecasting exercises. So even if we don't have numbers and data to look at, we can think in terms of the relationships. We can think in terms of correlations, not mathematical correlations, but still correlations. And we need, even in this case, to make a special effort in order for us to have a correct idea of what's going on with the phenomenon at hand. This is very important. Please bear this in mind always. So now we have two basic approaches how to formalize the problem. The first one refers to the theory of a stochastic process. According to this theory, we would never ever be able to observe the underlying stochastic process, which is basically the data generating process. We cannot observe the underlying stochastic process, so X infinite, but just a little portion of it, which is the time series. So the capital X refers to the unobservable underlying stochastic process. The lowercase x can be indexed by index t, and basically is the vector, is the container of the usually equispaced observations, like the number of beds in intensive care units, or number of deaths, or whatever is the phenomenon we are investigating. So according to this theory, so the stochastic process theory, the goal is to build a machine. The model is just a machine able to rebuild, reconstruct, infer, make inference on something that we cannot observe. Why we cannot observe the real stochastic process? Just one example, the noise. Okay. Suppose that the lab in charge of processing 55 whatever samples, in that very day, 2 employees are not available. So in that very days, the lab is only able to process 45 samples. So this discrepancy between 55 and 45 renders the idea of our impossibility to know exactly the data generating process. You may say, yes, but I can talk with the manager and ask him or her if all the employees are present. Yes. But, besides that error source, we can have many others which cannot control. So this is the theory of stochastic process. There is another process, there's another approach, which is a curve-fitting approach. We neglect the theory of stochastic process, so we don't care about what's going on at a deeper level. We just focus on what we see. So we see a curve, we see a pattern, we see dynamics. Okay, perfect. let's find out if mathematical functions can be found in order for us to be able to extrapolate information about the future observations, which of course we don't know. So the core fitting approach is basically something more empirical. So let's go granular a little bit on the stochastic processes. This is the intuition. We just observe this portion. This is a finite portion of data. But according to the theory of stochastic process, the intuition is that we have an infinite length. Infinite what? Okay, we start from the Big Bang, and we are gonna lose ourselves whatever in the infinite future. This is a necessary abstraction because we just have one sample. So the data at end. Our time series is just one finite realization of infinite realizations. So, of course, this is just an abstraction, but it's good to know what's going on in here. So that's why we would never, ever be able to observe something that starts from the Big Bang. Okay. The capital X is this guy here. This guy is the capital X with infinite length. Now, the time series is the lowercase x, and we have the vector, so the container, containing ordered and equispaced observations. Somebody might say, okay, why equispaced? Of course, there are no reasons. I can have a time series with some jumping around. But in this case, the mathematical models we need to apply would be much more complicated. So let's stay on, on what is the common case, and let's consider just this case, which consider just equispaced observations. So,
Livio, sorry, a question from the audience about the vector. It's right that the vector could be the number of hospitalization or the number of ICU beds occupied by COVID, or the number of patients with COVID or the patient without COVID?
Thank you.
It's right.
Yes, and yes. Thank you for the question. Yes, the answer is absolutely yes. X1, X2, XT, big T is just the observation. So each X1, so each X is the number of deaths, is the number of bed in ICU occupancy, is whatever quantitative data we are dealing with. Yes, so the vector is just the container. The vector is the time series. The vector, okay, the graphical representation of this vector is this curve here. The curve is not a curve, so why not? Because we just link each point just for graphical reasons. But according to the theory, according to the vector definition, we should have something like points here. Dots, 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 dots. We usually we connect these dots just to have a better idea of the dynamic of the phenomenon, but it's absolutely correct. X1 are just data point in time. Okay, so with that said, we need to build a machine. So we need to reconstruct the underlying stochastic process, the big X. Okay, I apologize here. There is something that went wrong when I exported the PDF. But anyway, this is the data. So phi1 is the weight, which weight the observation at time t minus 1. So xt is the number of people affected by COVID in the month of January. And let's do March, it's easier. So March, x March equal x February, t minus 1, and t minus 2 is January. So March, February, and January. So according to a stochastic process theory, we can, build up an autoregressive model which takes in account the data at t minus 1, t minus 2, in this case is just 2, but t minus 3, t minus 4, t minus 5, according to the phenomenon at hand. So we just need to estimate these two quantities, these two coefficients, phi1, phi2. So xt is known, the number of COVID positives at time t, February 28. In this case, there are daily data. So in daily data, we have February 28, and we have the COVID positive at February 27 and February 26. It's wrong here. So we just need to estimate these two coefficients. So in order for us to build up this model, we just need to estimate these two coefficients. And then we are going to look at this fact here. So how to estimate these models, these coefficients. Okay. Curve fitting approach. As I said, we neglect the infinite length time series, the stochastic process, but we focus on a mathematical function, a function of time. We call that ft. So we just need to fit the best mathematical function to the observed data. It's a rigid approach. We don't aim at modeling the underlying stochastic process, but we just, we just see our data, we see the curve, and we try to adapt a mathematical function, which is the curve itself. For instance, these are the data from February 18 to April 13, 2020. So our data are available till April 13th. So I built a mathematical function until here, and then I let it go. And I know in advance, I decided, not that I know, but I decided in advance, based on experience in other publications in the literature, that is a log normal function. So I impose a log normal structure to my data, which partially cover the log normal function. And this is the curve fitting approach. Okay, those are what I just said are basically the two models we are going to familiarize ourselves. So for those who don't know our software is a very powerful software which is freely available at this web address here. Is enough user-friendly but some learning is important. It's not immediate, but there are plenty of online resources. So whatever doubt you might have, you just go online and find tons of topic-specific R communities which already have discussed and solved most of your problems. So how, our software is an object-oriented programming language. And yes, at first, the R code should be written by an expert, but afterwards can be easily manipulated by less skilled person. So there is no problem in manipulating the R code once one has a good command or enough command of the software itself. Our software works with the libraries, and user-defined functions and customized code. Libraries are just the source code, are just the engine of the statistical method. For instance, everybody knows linear regression. So linear regression is just a library called LM in R. So whatever part of the world that you are in, whatever your hardware resources are at that time, you just need a PC and an internet connection, and you are good to go. You just grab your libraries, the libraries you need, and you download those libraries, and you are good to go. You can work on your data. So the R environment is very easy. There is a console here where all the information coming from the machine become visible. In this window here, you just write down the code, and here are the graphs and the output. So this is an example of our software editor. Now we are going to practically use R to do all the steps we need to build our first forecasting method.